Hi everybody and welcome back to Women Meets Motherhood. So today we're going to be talking about a very important topic in our eyes, which is maternal mental health. And we have two fantastic women with us today. We have Emily and we have Helena, who have agreed to come talk to us about their experiences and the work they do in the field. So welcome, ladies.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here today. And I'm just really grateful that you're here to share all the experiences and information that you have around the topic. So.
Yes, so Emily, I know you do a lot of work around this space and you're the founder of Mummy Links. So can you just tell us a little bit about Mummy Links and what made you passionate about the work that you do now in this space?
Sure, so Mummy Links is a free app that's soon launching. It's a safe place to meet mums for local play dates. So I'm aiming to help mums beat loneliness, particularly because that can be a precursor for maternal mental health. And it's something that I'm really passionate about because I had postnatal depression, anxiety and PTSD for about 2 years.
What is that?
Post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay. For about 2 years after my son was born. And it's something that completely took me by surprise. I had been, a successful businesswoman, loved working, loved seeing people, and then it just turned me into a really insecure, kind of unhappy person, and that really surprised me. So I'm really wanting to help other mums to kind of work through that and help them to hopefully avoid it.
And I know, Helena, you met Emily through Mummy Links as well. So do you mind telling us about your experience and what led you to meet Emily through Mummy Links?
Sure. I'm 37 years old. My husband and I struggled a lot with fertility before we had our little girl in 2014. The pregnancy itself was a good pregnancy, but the birth was quite traumatic. And prior to the pregnancy, I had suffered from depression, and I spiralled once I had my little girl. That caused a lot of angst, I think, because I didn't really want to tell people. I felt because something great had happened in my life, I didn't really want to feel like I was complaining to people. But I did actually have to go back on my medication once I'd had my little girl. Similar experience to Emily in lots of ways. So traumatic birth. I'd been a career woman before I had my little girl. And all of a sudden I was given this child and no handbook or anything. So that was a massive shock. And it took me a long time to come to terms with. So.
Yeah, and I think also you mentioned, as we prepared for this episode, that you also had a miscarriage as well. And that also, can you tell us a little bit about that as well? How that affected your mental health?
Yeah, so not long after we had Hannah, I became pregnant again, and we were so happy because after 5 years of trying for a baby, we thought, we're going to have two in the space of, 2 or 3 years. And unfortunately, after about 9-10 weeks, I miscarried. I had a very, very bad experience with the hospital who were taking care of me. A lot could have happened to stop the amount of suffering I went through, and I ended up miscarrying my baby and flushing it down the toilet, which was for me, that was quite a very traumatic thing. So obviously, again, it spiralled. Grief, as well as all the other physical symptoms that go with miscarriage for a child I'd never really met. And it sort of crept up on you unexpectedly. I would just burst into tears at random points. So it was massive. And on top of that, my husband was, he just started out as a curate, so I'm a vicar's wife. And he was having to uphold a job, and he was having to deal with grief as well as look after me. And our 3-year-old daughter who had chicken pox in the same week as well. So it was a horrible time. And I felt very isolated and lonely as someone who was supposed to be a role model.
And I definitely feel like I identify somewhat with that. So I have 2 boys, and after my second birth, I felt that I had postnatal depression. I was never diagnosed or went to a GP about it, but after the birth of my second son, we were renovating our house. We had a rogue trader who ruined everything, and I just felt so. I don't know. I felt during that pregnancy that having another one is like a walk in the park. I've done it before. I was like the happiest mum in the world to have a baby. Of course, the same feelings would come back to me. And then after my second son, I didn't feel happy. I just felt stressed. I felt like I just didn't know what was going on, and I had no patience with my first child. He was nearly 3, and I expect him to be like, you're an adult now, just get dressed, do what you need to do. And I had no control of my emotions. People come and visit me and expect for me to be happy, and I'd be like, yeah, the baby's there. I just was not happy. But you still have to be a mum to your older daughter. And I think sometimes with women, how do they deal, like with the women that you work with, how do they deal with, you know, experiencing postnatal depression with their second child, their third child, and having to still keep it all together for their family? And I don't know if that's something that you see or in the work that you do.
It is difficult. So it is more likely to have postnatal depression with your second or multiple children, just because you've got so much going on, haven't you? And you can't sleep when baby sleeps. You can't have that precious me time, even less. And it is difficult. And actually, it's up to the age of 5 that it's most prevalent. So people do think that it's something, you know, new mums, and obviously a lot of first-time mums do have it. So I think my experience was because it was just a bit of a kind of identity crisis. I suddenly didn't really know what I was meant to be doing, but it's actually more likely the second time round, because you've just got to hold even more balls than before. So it's really, really difficult. But I think it is difficult because obviously being a mum is going to be tiring, you're going to be stressed, you're not going to have much sleep. And it's about working out when that crosses over into mental health issues, because we all have bad days, right, don't we? But it's at that point when it's always a problem and you're always feeling down. I know for me it was when I found that there was just no light at the end of the tunnel. I used to be a really kind of, you know, happy-go-lucky person. I'd be up for anything and would love doing anything that my friends suggested. And then suddenly you actually can't remember what it is you enjoy doing. It's a really strange feeling, but you just, you know, my husband might be like, oh, well, why don't you go off and do something for 2 hours and I'll take our son out. And you're like, okay, but what on earth am I going to do? Like, how am I going to help myself? It's really, really weird.
You suddenly find it really difficult to do things that came naturally to you before. It is you feel like a totally different person. Yeah, I can.
But when you're going through it, do you know to yourself, do you come to that realization and say, yeah, I'm depressed, or is it kind of like you're in denial about what it is and you just know I'm feeling sadder than usual, I'm not my normal self?
I guess it's different for everyone, isn't it? So for me, because it was so stark, I'd gone from being, you know, this extrovert who was confident and happy to talk to anyone, you know, I'd approach people and talk to them in the street sometimes, to being really, really kind of upset or just get really anxious. I used to just get really hot and my heart would start going. My heart would start going when my closest friend was going to come around for tea, and you're just like, that just doesn't make sense, no. But I think for a lot of people, they are in denial. So I've got a lot of friends who, I guess I've got a radar for it now slightly, and they'll say something, and I'll just be like, And I won't necessarily say it there and then or in front of other friends, but I might just send them a quick message afterwards and say, you know, you said X, Y, Z. I just wanted to check in and check you were okay. So I had a friend the other day who was saying that whenever the baby was asleep, she couldn't relax. She always wanted to like clean a cupboard or something, like she just had to feel like she was achieving something. And I know with OCD, maternal OCD, that can be one of the things. I just
So is there something called maternal OCD?
Yes, yeah. Which actually, you think of OCD as, you know, putting pencils in straight lines or having everything really, really tidy or whatever it might be. But actually, it's more, you start doing those behaviours because you think that it's kind of stopping or preventing bad things happening. So maternal OCD is often about, you have these thoughts that something's going to happen to your baby, they're going to get hurt, someone's going to hurt them, someone's going to hurt you. And it's kind of those intrusive thoughts that you can't get rid of. And I know that can also be post-traumatic stress disorder as well. So I definitely had that. If my son went out with my husband sometimes, even when he was a toddler, not just a tiny baby, I would just picture, you know, them getting run over by a bus or just these random things. And there's no real reason why it should happen. But until I'd like phone my husband and be like, is everything all right? In my head, it happened. And it's a really strange thing. So it does seem to affect a lot of people in ways that they wouldn't necessarily know. And that's why I think it's really important that people who have been through it do just check in with people and be like, oh, you know, is everything okay? And with probably 2 or 3 friends over the last 6 months, they've ended up then going to the GP because they've been like, actually, you're right, it doesn't seem quite right.
And I think that's it's so helpful for even the example you gave with your friend, and when she said that comment, you were able to click on, because even going back, taking a step back to, we're talking about maternal mental health here, so there is a pre and there is a post, and it'll be great to understand most people are probably very understanding of what post is, because it comes with, you've had the baby, it could have been traumatic, something could have happened, a lot of all that, the stress, the anxiety, all of that. But how does it even look like pre? So I'm pregnant, a woman who's carrying a baby, even then, if it's a quite smooth pregnancy, why could she also still suffer from depression?
Sure. So I guess in a way it looks quite similar. So I, in hindsight, struggled with prenatal anxiety, but I didn't realise it at the time, and it wasn't until I struggled postnatally that I realised, oh, that's what that was. So for me, I just was very anxious, particularly in the third trimester. So I remember going out for a meal with my husband and some of his family, and I just went to the restaurant, and we were eating happily, everything was completely fine, and then suddenly it hit me. I was suddenly really hot, really sweaty, a bit disgusting, and just needed to get out. I just felt trapped, and I just had to get out of the restaurant, and I ended up walking home in tears because I didn't understand what was happening. And at the time, I thought it was just hormones. You know, you get hot when you're pregnant quite often, but it was December, and I remember after that point going out with my husband, his first baby, just at like 2 a.m. in the morning. I'd wake up hot, panicky, sweaty, and I'd be walking up and down our road in as little clothes as you can in December, because I was just burning hot. And in hindsight, because that was one of my symptoms for postnatal anxiety, in hindsight it was anxiety, and I don't think I ever really prepared myself for the fact that I was actually going to have a baby. I think I'd done NCT and I knew what was going to happen, but I don't think I actually expected it to happen. So yeah, I think my body was anxious about it without my brain really realising it, which is a bit strange. But.
It's funny you mentioned that now you look back on it and say that was one of the symptoms of your postnatal. So what would you say are some symptoms we need to look for in both pre and post?
So I think they're similar in both, probably. In terms of anxiety, it would be that heart racing, feeling trapped, just kind of wanting to get away, hot, sweaty. And quite often the anxiety, so there's general anxiety disorder, and that can mean that actually there isn't any particular trigger. So I used to have that sometimes. I'd walk down the road and suddenly it would come, and you have literally no idea why. So then you can't really do anything to help yourself. In terms of depression, it's consistent low mood, tearfulness. You can be really tired during the day but not able to sleep at night. So I actually had 6 months where I got 1 hour sleep a night, and that was it. And I tried sleeping pills and everything, and it didn't work. And I didn't really know why. Like, I wasn't actually thinking about things, but you couldn't process through it. Then there's definitely the intrusive thoughts. So I used to play back my C-section a lot in my head. And then for me, it's that complete lack of joy and light at the end of the tunnel. And of course then the lack of bond with the baby as well, which can come with that, where friends would talk about, I remember some friends saying, oh, he woke me up 3 times last night, but every time I looked into his eyes, my heart melted and it made it worth it. And I thought, really? Like, for me, that didn't happen at all. And it seems really horrible saying that, but it's true. I mean, I completely love my son to bits now, thank goodness. But for a long time, I was, and I think because I had a C-section as well, and my mum was helping a lot, which was brilliant, I didn't really feel like he was mine, because I hadn't had him naturally. I don't know if that might have been part of it. And then because she was helping so much, because I couldn't move quite a lot of the time for the first 6 weeks, I was kind of like, actually, I was breastfeeding him, but I felt like that was all I was there for, really. And I think, that makes it quite difficult.
Helena, do you identify with some of these symptoms?
Yeah, and interestingly, you were talking about lack of sleep. With me, I almost had too much. I felt a lot of the time that I didn't want to get out of bed, particularly after Hannah was born. So I would say if a woman was suddenly becoming withdrawn and tired, very, very overly tired actually, that would be a symptom to look out for as well.
Yeah, that's true.
It can manifest itself in different ways, but for me, there were days where I just didn't see the point in getting out of bed, and I was just, I so lacked in energy. I can identify with the...
I think withdrawn, that's a really good one actually, because if my friends saw me, I was generally fine, because I was out when I was fine. But they actually wouldn't have seen me as much as they would have done before, because those were the moments where I just couldn't face the
it,
world.
yeah.
But yeah, people were quite shocked when I told them, because they were like, oh, well, whenever I saw you, you know, you seemed
fine,
okay, you were
yeah.
tired and etc. But otherwise
Yeah.
you were fine. Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah, I think you do have the ability to be high functioning around other people, but at the same time, your world can be falling apart. And yeah, I remember after I'd had Hannah, it felt like this fog was just over my head constantly for the first 6 weeks.
Did you feel you had it straight away, the postnatal depression?
I think I was able to pinpoint I had it quite quickly because I'd had it before.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
So that helped in a way, but it really knocked me for 6 because I had such an easy pregnancy up until the birth. So I thought, oh, I've nailed it, it's fine. And then it completely knocked me for 6, and that shocked me. And I did go to the doctor quite quickly, but it did shock me how downhill I went very, very quickly.
Can we talk a little bit about the support system? So I know you mentioned your mum was around.
Yep.
Did she notice that you had changed as a daughter, or was it something that other people could have seen? And if so, what was the support that you got? And in your case, you didn't have depression before. So what made you go and say, I need to be diagnosed, or to the point of being diagnosed?
So it's probably more my husband than my mum. I mean, she was around a lot, and I guess she would have seen the difference as well, but I guess in my case, I'm closer to my husband, so he was the one that probably noticed. I mean, to be honest, I think I noticed a lot as well, because it was just so different, but I know for some people it's not as different. So yeah, I then went to the GP, because I remember my husband saying, this is not the normal Emily, we need to get the normal Emily back. And for me, that was most of the support. I had kind of my church family around me, which was quite nice as well. We live really close to everyone, and quite a lot of them were having babies at the same time. But I didn't actually hear about like Pandas. There's a charity called Pandas, which help people. I hadn't heard about that at all until the work I'm doing now. And there's lots of people out there helping. I've got a good friend called Lindsay over in Northern Ireland with Have You Seen That Girl? Is the name of her blog. Must remember that one. And there's a lot out there that you can now get for support. But the GP is definitely the place to go. But I know lots of mums are very averse to doing that because they're worried baby's going to be taken away, I'm going to be put on medicine, it's not going to be my choice. And obviously, Helena, you were saying that you did go on medicine, which is probably the quickest and easiest fix. It's not necessarily quick and easy, but it probably is. For me, I decided not to, which in hindsight was probably a bad choice. I think it would have been the best route. But for me, it was about, I felt out of control and putting a pill in myself that I didn't really know what it was going to do to me. And let's be honest, in my head, in 6 weeks of symptoms, they often say, lots of people don't get them, but in 6 weeks I was going to be better. Every time I went to the GP, no, 6 weeks, I'm going to have kicked this, I'm going to be better. And of course, 2 years later, I still wasn't. But so I went down the speaking therapy route. So I had CBT and dynamic relational therapy, I think it was called. So, because I think I noticed that for me, it was a bigger deal than just having a baby. It was that kind of identity crisis and not really knowing what had happened. And so talking therapy was really good, that I could kind of work out what that meant for me. But if I had taken medicine as well, my understanding now is that I would have got better much quicker.
But I think for me, Emily, so I know that you're, for example, you're an Oxford graduate, you've had a good job. How do you go? I went to Cambridge, so I'm just thinking, how do you go from feeling like, you know, you're on your A game, and then you now find yourself doing therapy, and how did that make you? I'm just wondering, how did that make you feel? And I guess that's all part of the identity. But how were you able to overcome? Well, actually, this doesn't define who I am, and through this, I can actually help other women.
So I felt like a failure to start with. That's what I thought. I thought I'd let down my son, my husband, my family, myself. I was quite ashamed of the fact. You know, I've always been able to get up there, talk in front of people. Even if there was something I hated doing, I would just push myself and be able to do it. And I think that's why I got depressed, actually, because the anxiety was so big and I couldn't shift it. I couldn't just bash through it. And, you know, some of the people close to me were like, just pull your socks up and carry on. And I was just like, I'm trying. I just can't. So that was quite difficult. And to start with, I didn't tell anyone about it because I was ashamed, because you're like, everyone sees me, you know, as, on paper, a successful person. But actually, I'm not anymore. Like, what, you kind of blame yourself. Like, what have I done wrong? What could I do differently? But then I did want to start talking about it because I didn't want other people to feel like that. And actually it was when I started talking, there were two ladies at my church who had been through it previously. I started talking to them and they told me their stories. And I was like, I'm not alone in this. It's actually quite normal. So they say 1 in 3 postnatally and 1 in 4 prenatally struggle with some sort of mental health issue. And actually that is not the majority, but it's not far off. And that made me feel so much better. And so that's why now, through #ShoutySelfie and things like that, I'm getting people talking about it so that all the mums out there currently struggling know they're not alone. Because that, for me, was like the first step. And actually, when I started that campaign last year, I used to work at Innocent Drinks, and I went back to them and I asked them, you know, if they could support me in it. And the number of people that were like, oh yeah, my wife had that as well, we'll totally support you. But sending that email first to them, so it was quite a high senior person there, sending it to them, it took so much courage because I was like, this could be completely writing off a career there ever in the future because they're going to think I'm like this head case. And actually, they were so understanding because they were like, yep, we understand that, we've been through that too, totally behind you. So
I've just got a new job myself, and when you have to fill in the medical questionnaire, you obviously have to disclose any illnesses. And I just had a great interview. I'd been offered a job. They said they really liked me, and then all of a sudden I had to disclose that I was depressive, and that took. I was quite tempted not to put it down because I didn't want them to think badly of me having just got this great job. It's terrifying.
But I think definitely what I'm learning from this is that courage again is something that women have to have, and it comes, it will come. And for you to be able to you're a vicar's wife, you like model student, to be able to come out and say, actually, this is what I'm suffering with. This is what this is what I'm trying to battle with today and now, and I want to help others. It's not easy, and particularly when it comes to having children, people expect you guys should be happy you've had a child. What's going on? Just get it together. Do you know how blessed you are? And especially even on top of that, as Christians as well, your Christian faith. How would you say your mental health and your Christianity? What did you think of yourself, I guess, as your identity as a Christian, and going through this as well?
I think it's just been a massive reminder to me just how much we place on our identities and how easy it is to not put our identity in God. And I was so encouraged, particularly by, I don't know about you, but the Psalms just really spoke to me when I was in my darkest moments, feeding Hannah at 2:00 in the morning, crying my eyes out, and I looked at David in the Psalms and I thought, yeah, you were depressed, I can see that. He knew what it was to hit rock bottom, and God knows that as well, and he wants us to depend on him. So I learned a lot about dependence, and I don't know about you, but someone who was a career woman, who is a career woman, you're so used to being independent and doing things on your own merit and not having to depend on other people. That's a really, really hard thing to do. You do have to be on your knees before God, but it is so important, I think, to sort of break through. So,
I think it's the only thing that got me through. I don't think I'd be here anymore if I didn't have my faith. I think I would have checked out.
Absolutely.
So I think it's really key. And also in terms of talking about it now, I don't worry so much about people judging me because that doesn't matter to me so much. So that's one of the reasons why I talked out. If I cared what everyone thought of me so much, then maybe I would still hide it. But actually, I don't mind sharing it as long as it's helping people.
I would love to just hear one line of advice from you, Helena, and from you, Emily, to that woman who may be struggling with this right now. What do you want to say to them, just as we round up?
Talk. Find someone to talk to. Doesn't have to be a counsellor or a doctor, just somebody you trust. For me, my mum lived miles away from me when I had my baby. I found someone at my church who I trusted, and just talking about it makes you realise that a whole lot of things that you didn't know were going on. So,
yeah, and similarly, it's okay, and you're not alone.
Absolutely.
Like, it's not your fault.
Yep.
That would be it.
Perfect. Thank you both so much for sharing your story, sharing what you know on the issue, and just your resources as well. I think it's going to help so many women out there. So Thank you guys for tuning in. If you want any more information on the subject, if you're going through it yourself, just see below. We're going to have all the information that you need. Any resources, just click, and hopefully that will be able to help you. So just remember to comment, like, and subscribe. And in the meantime, we want you to be encouraged, be equipped, and be empowered.